Hi, everyone. This is Vanessa, also known as the International Immigrant, and welcome to my podcast. This is a place where we discuss everything immigration related, from the desire to work in another country for a few years to test the waters, to studying abroad in the hopes of opening up some opportunities, and of course, full immigration with a cargo container of furniture and a residence visa stamped in your passport. If this is your first time and you want to know who I am and why I started this podcast, please watch or listen to the first episode, as there are both audio and video versions available. Today, I am going to be chatting to a dear friend of mine that I met when I was teaching English in Costa Rica. We met a month before I left and flew out to Canada and headed off almost immediately and have been friends ever since. She is a dear, sweet soul, and I treasure her presence in my life. And today we are going to discuss her immigration dreams. So please welcome Lacie. Hey, darling, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great.
So can you just introduce yourself just briefly? Let us know where you live, your current situation, and what you do for a living.
Sure. So, my name is Lacie. I currently live in Montgomery, Alabama. I grew up just outside Montgomery, but I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. I've got a lot of family around the Southeast United States, but right now home is the capital of Alabama. My situation right now is that I'm currently living with a family member who is he does very well for himself, and he's my sibling. He's my brother, and he has a really nice neighborhood. I love the apartment, and he lets me live with him for free as long as I can help out a little bit. And I currently am teaching as well. I was an elementary teacher for about 3 years, and some situations happened in life, and I figured out, teaching elementary in a classroom really wasn't for me. I have decided since I left that career that I to a new role in life, a new career, but I didn't really feel like I had a lot of options. I've always been fascinated by the Latin American culture, and being bilingual in Spanish, that really wasn't an opportunity for me to understand language growing up, but I've always wanted to be in Spanish. So I tried to switch to a career where I can be a Spanish translator or work in the library. Well, situations happened in life and that didn't happen. So I decided I was going to see if I could improve my Spanish by traveling and making money in Latin American countries. And, when there wasn't that, maybe exploring other countries as well, get an opportunity to improve my Spanish by living in Latin America and teaching there. And then if life takes me anywhere else in the world, that'd be great. I would definitely want to explore the rest of the world. Right now, I'm because of COVID, I have left Latin America. It's been about 9 months. I've been back home with my brother, and for a couple of months, I was unemployed, trying to get back into that original dream of maybe working in a life field, trying to improve my Spanish. During quarantine by meeting with a former student of mine online, who can help me with Spanish, I can help me with English. But that didn't really work out. So I went back into the only thing I really like, which is teaching. And instead of going back teaching in a classroom in elementary school where I knew I would not be happy, I decided that to pay the bill, I tried teaching, tutoring really, and teaching online and tutoring at learning centers in Montgomery, Alabama. It is very different from the different situations I found myself in my life, because during a quarantine, almost everything, and before COVID, I never really had an experience learning or teaching online. I knew it really wasn't my thing to do things online. You do what you got to do. Mm-hmm. So I switched my time between a learning center that does online and in-person classes, and 2 other sites as well that provide tutoring sessions to students who, who need it. And that's what I'm currently doing in my life right now. I'm hoping that I can still find a library job. I'm not sure if I want to pursue further education in the United States, at least with a degree or something maybe in another field, because, if you're not American, you should know that going to university in the United States is very expensive.
It is expensive.
So
I did try that, yes.
Yes, great education, you pay through the nose. You pay for the rest of your life for it.
Right.
So I'm holding out hopes that maybe for a brief time in my life, wherever God puts me, I can start out at a library somewhere at the bottom of this is where I'm supposed to be, my way up. But as of right now, I'm still kind of in this place where I am just providing tutoring services to these 3 different companies. About 75% of my work time is online, and then 25% of it I can get a class or 2 a week at the Learning Center in person.
Right. And as somebody who also teaches online, and I do find it very rewarding, but it's also very challenging with technical issues, which we are experiencing right now in this podcast slightly, but we're still able to be understood. So that provides a challenge, oh my God, on its own, if it were only easier. But I want to ask you some questions about your desire to immigrate, because a lot of my students, and I mentioned this in my first episode, are interested in talking to me about my journey through living in 6 countries, because obviously there's this amazing view of the US. And to be honest, I mean, I've lived there. I loved it. I fell in love with it. So I'm completely biased. But that everything is just going to be 80s sitcom amazing when you get there. So now you are an American woman, a young woman, an educated woman, an intelligent woman. Why do you want to emigrate? And I know that it's a dream of yours at the moment, but why do you have it?
I think I have this dream to experience what life is like in the country, and if, God puts me there, to maybe permanently relocate, because I find other places around the world, in the US as well, but also in other places around the world, fascinating to experience. I uniquely enjoy learning about other people's cultures and learning as many phrases as possible in other languages. And I am a huge history buff. I love studying history, and my favorite types of history to study, other than North American history, because that's my home, but is Latin American history, and is European history, and is parts of East Asian history. And there's a really fascinating history of India. But I'm always just fascinated about the very beautiful marvels that places around the world offer. And I also love studying history. And I find it fascinating to learn as much as I can about other people and other cultures, their languages, their food, what does their religion teach. And I also love geography. I love studying natural resources. So I think that's another spark in my desire to travel and see if maybe one day I would like to relocate to other parts of the world permanently. And it's not because, I hate the US, I hate the US. No, I don't hate living in the US. I don't regret being born here. I do, but unlike a lot of people in the US, I recognize the faults of being a U.S. citizen. And I'm not saying that I would want to, I wish I was born somewhere else. No, I'm very proud to be American. And I do recognize the U.S. has a lot of fascinating geography and history that I love studying. I love studying U.S. history, and I would love to travel around the U.S. because, again, it's a huge country that has a lot of diversity when it comes to geography and history and peoples and religions, types of food, and I think that's great. But I also think the same passion I have for studying about my own country, I have for other countries. And I think it's just so fascinating. Being, I'm not a woman of color, I'm a Caucasian woman, so my ancestry comes from a very densely populated version of Europe. And I do think that I can connect. I do like to connect with my own ancestry, my own family, by studying a lot of European history. But that doesn't mean I don't find Asian history fascinating. I find the imperialism, the imperialistic structure of ancient Japan so fascinating. But when I was a kid, I recognized that as an American, where other countries in the world learn English as a second language because it's just become a universal language. I recognize that the United States is universal language other than English is Spanish, and it's so useful to be bilingual. And as an American, you definitely should try to learn another language because it's not only good for your mental health and brain power, but it's also just a good thing that if you travel to another country, don't be a dumb American and assume everybody speaks English. And especially we have so much diversity in the United States. The United States is a melting pot, and that's what makes us such a great country, is that we are melting. And I treasure that about my country.
Lace, I will say that it's interesting. I have to stop you because it's so interesting that you say don't be a dumb American. And I understand that. Other countries have that, other English-speaking countries. The Brits are the same. The Australians are the same. But a lot of my students, I say, why are you learning English? I want to travel. I want to travel. And they assume English is spoken everywhere. They believe that if they know English well, their travels will be better. So even people who are non-native English speakers are learning English to travel. So it has become globally accepted that if you can speak English, regardless of your native language, you will be understood everywhere.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've worked with non-native English speakers now, and recently in the past, who definitely tell me this. And when I lived in Costa Rica teaching English there, one of the number one reason that we learned while we were working there together, why are you here learning English, is, oh, I want to travel. Okay, that's great. But what if you go to a non-English speaking country? Like, I know English is a universal language, but it's like, it's for travel, but also because in this country, if you speak English, the much better chance you have of getting a better job. And that, oh my goodness, that was so prevalent in their country, is that you learn English to get a better job. And I made friends there. I made friends with some ticos there, and I made a really close friend there. She was taking English classes at this small company in downtown, and not because she was thinking that she would meet an American and who might or might not speak any Spanish and would need to communicate with her. She wanted to make friends, but because she was trying to get into college. The college system in that country is a little bit differently than from the U.S., and she was trying to get into college, and she knew that if whatever she wanted to study, when she came out with a degree, she would definitely be able to speak English, because the jobs she would get would either be an American company or Canadian or US or like an English-speaking company, or she would be able to get a higher manager position where some of her clients might be English speakers, or she might be able to leave Costa Rica. And I know she had family in the United States. That she would maybe want to move to the US. She loved Americans. I don't know why. She had a thing for a particular group of American men, that she found attractive. And where I live, we're very ethnically diverse. And she definitely wanted to move to the United States so that she could maybe meet an American guy that she found particularly attractive, and the more English she knew, the better chance she would have of succeeding as a life in the United States and maybe marrying somebody in the United States. And
yeah, I know. Look, I mean, I've heard, I also heard stories. I mean, this is very prevalent in Central and South America. You and I both know this. Sort of, your way out is, your way in, basically, into another country, into a relationship or whatever. And it is kind of heartbreaking that there are certain cultures that just, that's how you get somewhere as a woman, is to meet a guy. Unfortunately, as a gay woman, I never had that opportunity, but you never know. So I just
definitely can meet a nice woman.
Yes, if you're out there, give me a call. So what I want to actually sort of go back to, because you and I have had a conversation before about Scotland, and you communicated a love of Scotland to me. Please correct me if I'm wrong. When we used to chat before I left Costa Rica. And is that the country that if I could wave a magic wand and just change your life tomorrow, you would go?
See, that's the issue. Scotland is definitely on the radar for me. Part of my issue is that if you could wave a magic wand and I'd throw out the first country and that's exactly where I want to be, I can't tell you yes. I feel a little confused right now. I don't want to leave the U.S. because of a lot of people's situations in Latin America and other countries, or because getting out is the way in. I love Latin America. I loved Costa Rica, but I also loved Scotland and England. And I think that maybe I would love living in France, because there's such fast. And I would maybe love buying, if I had the money, I would buy a villa in Italy. But Scotland is definitely on my radar. But if you were to wave a magic wand, I'd feel confused, because I would stop and say, you know what? Scotland, yeah, Scotland's definitely top 5. But then I liked living in Latin America. I definitely want to make sure that I can improve my Spanish enough to be fluent. Maybe I would throw out Costa Rica. I didn't really enjoy living in the capital, San Jose of Costa Rica, but I do recognize that there are other cities in Costa Rica that were just beautiful. Maybe I would throw out Costa Rica again, or, I almost moved to Colombia before COVID hit. I also had a job lined up in Ecuador, and I thought maybe, and I did a lot of research in Ecuador, maybe I'd throw it at Ecuador. There's somewhere in rural Italy with my name on it. I really have no idea. But if you said, Lacie, I have this power, don't waste it. You only have 30 seconds to throw out one country. I probably would say Scotland. And then I would say, is there an asterisk at the end of that, sentence? Like, maybe if I decide that I would love to travel the world, and maybe Scotland's not for me, could I also get a second chance and say, somewhere in a coastal city in Costa Rica? Or maybe, if I can get as many chances as I want, could I spend a year in Italy, seeing if that's where I want?
And look, to be perfectly honest, the privilege that we have as native English speakers really is that this is something that we are able to do. And I hope that other people are hearing your passion, and I would encourage a lot of young and middle-aged, like me. My God, I'm middle-aged, but young is where you really enjoy it, and you sort of don't have so many commitments, to actually go and teach English in all of these countries, because they are desperate for native English speakers. I mean, a lot of my students are in Turkey, and Turkey desperately needs native English speakers. And if you want history, oh my God, Istanbul. And I love the Turkish people. I have developed an absolute love affair with them, based on those that I have met. So, this is such it is a possibility for you, but now throw a colossal pandemic in that has halted us for almost nearing a year and a half. And all of those dreams have faded. But do you think potentially after the pandemic is over that this is something that you would do? Hop from country to country and experience all that you can?
Before the pandemic, I would have said yes. When my plans to work at a library fell through and then something happened with my grandfather, I would have said yes, because there was a point right before I went to Costa Rica that I was like, I guess this is not going to happen. It's just not going to happen where I'm going to have a life with books at a library or an archive or a museum. So I guess the next best thing would be, I love traveling. I love studying history. I would love to learn languages, even if it's just like intermediate level. I would love to experience other cultures, and with the privilege of being a native English speaker, I can definitely use that to help me do this. And so before the pandemic, I put my dreams of working with books to the side. Like to travel and use my privilege as an English speaker to help me do that. And then go ahead and so much just fell apart. As of right now, as of this moment, I would love to be able to kickstart the possibility of making a life and a career out of traveling around the world, living there for maybe 6 months to 2 years, and making my way teaching English. But right now, I really don't know, because this pandemic has just made the future look so dark. But I'm starting to feel some hope.
Yeah.
Not just because the vaccine has become so available for my state right now, and I've got the first dose, but because so when I came home from Costa Rica, COVID kind of made it a priority that I come home, and so when I came home, I was unemployed, and I had always wanted a dog. My financial situations in my life before July of last year made it where I couldn't really afford a dog. But I came home and I was like, I felt this kind of hope that I wasn't going to let COVID beat me down, even though it had changed my life's plans. And I was like, I'm finally going to get the dog. So I did. I adopted a dog, and he's laying right beside me right now. But I fulfilled one life's desire, but I didn't have a job. And so in my neighborhood, there's this dog park, and I was taking him there every day, and I met some people from my neighborhood that are around my age, and we would meet every day. They would meet every day because COVID had driven them to work from home, and they were starting to feel the effects of COVID, and of course, all of these people that were meeting at the park every day had something in common. They were people in their early 20s to early 30s who worked in the military, that were living in Montgomery, Alabama on the Air Force Base for the next 6 months to 2 years. And they all had a dog. They were all single and feeling the effects of COVID, and decided they were going to meet every day. And so I just randomly went to the park one day with my dog. I only had 2 weeks, and I met them. I was like, yeah, I told you, I'm so excited you. And it's befriending these neighbors. So these neighbors are, almost all of them are in their early 30s, that work for the military, that travel the world. One of them, a really great person, she just got me back into, encouraged me to get back into joining a sport, like a community sport. She just got moved here from Singapore. And before that, she was in Colorado. And before that, she was in, oh my goodness, Thailand, maybe. And she gets to travel. She makes a living. She has a really good salary working for the U.S. Air Force. And they pay her way. She gets a great salary working for the U.S. Air Force. They pay for her to move, to ship a car if she wants to do that, which is so expensive. And she basically gets to move around the country every 6 months to 3 years, and around the world on the U.S. government's dime. And I'm thinking, I don't get that kind of privilege. I don't get the opportunity because I'm not in the U.S. military. I have no interest in joining the U.S. military. But why can't I do something similar? And she and I were actually talking the other day. she's giving me hope again because of getting back into traveling the world and using my privilege as an English speaker to afford to do so. Because I was asking her about her car. When you were poor, what did you do about your car? Because when I was in Costa Rica, thankfully I had family who helped me with my car. And, her family's all over the world, all over the U.S., so she didn't have that privilege. And she said, oh, the U.S. government shipped it for me. And that conversation led to my travels, so that I was only in Scotland for 5 days and in England for about 5 days. But I learned how to travel by myself as a woman without having any. And I did a cruise once with a family friend, and I learned a little bit about how, and I have a friend who works on a cruise ship, so she travels the world through that way. And I did talk to her briefly about it. I have friends who volunteer, who are missionaries, and they travel the world through that way as missionaries. The church helps them pay for it. Maybe where I can experience as much of life in other countries and other parts of the world as possible through teaching English. And teaching English, depending on where you live, is not very lucrative, but in other parts of the world it is.
True. It depends on where you go, absolutely. And a lot of my students tell me that they have an American teacher who's living in Mexico. A lot of their teachers are also living in these other countries, because while for you and I, at the moment I'm in South Africa with my family, so it's more of a moot point, although this country has become unbelievably expensive considering it's a developing country. But when I was living in Canada, I was working over 50 hours a week just to be able to pay my rent and my food and a few dollars to do a few things, because I was earning definitely less than Canadian minimum wage and paying first world rent and bills. But, my students in Turkey tell me how cheap it is. And I know that they desperately need English teachers, and you can get a job in like private schools there. And I think they make sure that you're okay and you're taken care of. So there's all of these options. I mean, you are correct. I mean, we're in a pandemic. It's hit all of us hard, me as well, kind of removed some hope. But I do have hope for the future, and I do believe that it will shift at some point, and that we just needed this time to figure out what each of us wanted, where we want to go, spend time with families that, I hadn't lived with my family in 18 years before these last few months. Now, there may be a multiple homicide at some point in time in my household, but it's been great to spend some time with my family, because I've been an immigrant for 18 years. So I think the pandemic is definitely pushing us to think outside the box. And I must be honest, this podcast, this episode has taken a very different route than I thought it would when we started. And I love that. I'm just going with it, because I very much had in my mind, you were so set on Scotland when we used to chat. And I'm so happy that your experiences have changed your view now and your worldview, because I know my Brazilian students, so it's Portuguese, it's not Spanish. 5% of people in Brazil speak Portuguese. They're desperate for English teachers. Obviously, Colombia, just about any Central or South American country is desperate for English speakers. So maybe your world has opened up some.
Definitely. I definitely know that I would like to experience what it's like to live in Scotland. My family's ancestors on my dad's side are from Scotland and other parts of Western Europe, and I do feel that kind of like call from my ancestors. Come back to Scotland.
But you know, I have a simple solution.
My last name is...
I have a British passport.
Right.
You have an American one. If we just get married, I can live in the US. You can live in Scotland. Everybody's happy.
Definitely.
And I hope...
I really care about...
Just before you continue, because I want you to finish, I'm just going to do a shout out. Anybody from Scotland listening to this podcast who knows people in a library, hit me up for my friend's details. She's phenomenal and she'll do really good in your library. Okay, continue about your Scottish ancestors.
No, it's just, I definitely, part of why I'm starting to feel confident again about getting back out there is because before I ever traveled to other countries, I felt so insecure. And to this day, I still feel very secure. But there was something inside me telling me, you gotta do it. And the first time I ever left my country was in college, where I was taking Spanish classes. I was so adamant about becoming fluent in Spanish because it's such a useful skill, especially as an American. My university had almost a degree on time on hold because of classes, and so I was like, no, you're not going to dictate to me when I can finish college. I'm on track. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to study abroad, and I did, and I was able to get this great education in Costa Rica, and then that gave me the travel bug, and I was like, I love Latin America, but I also love European history. And my ancestors are from parts of France, the Netherlands, Scotland, Ireland, and then things kind of happened to me in my life where I couldn't, immediately go back and start traveling until 2019. I had a situation with my grandfather. I had to help him with something, and he lives in a different city. So when I moved to live with him, and then all of a sudden, my brother and my cousins, my aunts, uncles, my grandparents, they all live in New Orleans, and I moved to New Orleans to help my grandfather. And I'm there for a couple of weeks. I'm dealing with, being a full-time nurse and my grandfather, but whose situation had slightly improved. So I was very bored, wanting to find part-time work. And my brother and my cousins all live in New Orleans, and they told me randomly one day that they had, a couple months ago, this is 2019, decided that they wanted to take a trip to London that was 2018. I'm sorry, that was 2018. They wanted to take a trip for summer 2019 because there was this baseball game going on in London. I couldn't care less. And I was like, wait. My family members have this plan to go to London and then maybe take a side trip somewhere because they're in Europe. They've never been in Europe. What? I'm going. I know I've been living on the poverty line for a very long time. I'm not about to let that stop me. And my cousin's boyfriend has actually traveled a lot. He's this person that is really confident. He's traveled a lot, and he basically helped me figure out how I could join them with next to no money and travel to London. And then I was like, you know what? I'm in London. I'm this close to Scotland. There's a lot of beautiful history and landmarks in Scotland. And they were like, but we're going to go to the Greek islands. And I was like, I'd love to go to the Greek islands. I really would, but I'm a history person. I love history. Greek islands have a lot of amazing history. But, I really want to take this opportunity, maybe the last time in Europe, and see some amazing Scottish history. And my cousin's boyfriend helped me figure out how I could do that. And I know it's really weird. I learned a lot of things about how to travel alone in the moment while I was in Scotland and in London. It's kind of crazy, and I'm just, God was watching over me because I learned how to travel by myself in the moment.
It's empowering. It's so empowering.
It is. It's very empowering.
It is. It's so empowering, and I'm glad we're kind of having this conversation because I have traveled a lot on my own, and I teach young women often who are so terrified because of their cultural conditioning that as a woman, you cannot travel alone. And it's just such a crock. It's just not remotely true. You can, yes, you need to be more cautious. Okay, there's absolutely no doubt about that. And it does depend on the country you choose. But yes, it is so possible to travel as a woman on your own.
Yes. Yes, I'm definitely a type of person who has this passion for making sure that I can lift up as many women as possible. I definitely want to make sure that I'm always lifting women up, and I'm always trying to explain to people, even here in the U.S.,
Mhm.
you women can do anything. We can't let our guards down. We can't just think, oh, just because I'm going to take the chance that I can make, stupid choices. Women definitely do need to be smart about their own safety and health whenever it comes, well, in every aspect of their life, no matter where they live. That's definitely a thing, even here in the U.S. Especially in other, countries. But that I don't want women to think that just because we have to make smarter decisions about our own safety, because this is a man's world, that it should always be a man's world. Absolutely not. And that we can't, that we should always think that because it's been a man's world since exists, that it should always be a man's world, that women can't do things. And I definitely don't, and I even growing up in the US, I feel that. I definitely have to that women, this is a man's world, and carry mace in our pockets whenever we just go to the store. It's 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah, no.
I did not want to live like that.
No, and it does depend where you go. And I will say that for my experience personally, I would say that Canada is probably the place that I felt safest as a woman, and pretty safe in Australia. But I also I am one of the most street smart, ignorant people that you have ever met, because I will go walking in a Texas park at 6 o'clock in the morning and worry about the coyotes and not be concerned about a person. And yet I was born and raised on the streets of South Africa in privilege, but also, it's not a safe country. So I am street smart and completely stupid at the same time. So, you can still make those stupid decisions, even if you are a seasoned traveler. But
definitely,
we basically have reached time. So what I just kind of want to wrap up is there anything that you want to share that you've learned that, because this has very much kind of gone down a path that I love, that you would want to share with other young women who would want to travel or set out or teach English, or that you would share with them now?
Definitely. I would to share with other women that I am definitely, if you are afraid to even leave your hometown where you grew up, much less go to another country and live there for an extended amount of time, if that's what makes you happy, is to live and die in your hometown, then that's fine. But if you have any kind of spark in your heart that tells you, my hometown, I would love to come back and visit as much as possible. I even have this weird thought in the back of my head about buying a property here, maybe. But if there's anything in your heart that says, I like studying history, I like learning new languages, I like exploring and traveling, but I'm afraid because I'm a woman, either single or not single. Both have their own benefits and their own repercussions. I'm not gonna let anything stop me, because I was definitely in that place. I definitely was in that place where I felt too insecure. I didn't feel like I was smart enough. I didn't feel like I had enough money, because I definitely do not and never have. Because I'm a woman. Don't let that stop you. Because I was definitely in that position, and I still feel like I'm in that position now. I'm single, which has its benefits, but it has its repercussions. I'm still making in the poverty line of the US's version of the poverty line, and I have always been in that position where I've never really had enough money. I never had the opportunity to learn multiple languages growing up. It was English and English only, because I definitely did not come from a multicultural background. and I never, and my parents really didn't see the need to travel or take vacations. So I grew up very much in this staunch thought process that I was really never going to leave my hometown. And there was always this idea in the back of my head. I was like, I don't want to live like that. I love my hometown, and I love my country, my family, and I recognize that I do have privileges. People might not have. I don't want to live where I'd never experience other cultures, and I don't want to live in fear all my life. I hate that I'm so afraid all the time. And I know that if I just took the chance to branch out, it could be better than this hopelessness that I feel in my heart that says you're not smart enough, you don't have enough money, you don't have the life experience, you never do it. And there have been some people in my life that told me this as well, not just myself and not just my culture, my society, my country, but also some people I really love in my life who told me that you'll never branch out, if you don't get married, you'll be single all the rest of your life, living on your family. Who told me this? And I was like, no, I'm not going to listen to them. I'm not going to listen to my family, the people who are supposed to love me. I'm not going to listen to my culture. I'm not going to listen to my voice that says that. I'm going to learn fire by trial if that's what it takes. I'm going to be as smart as I possibly can to make smart decisions, but if it comes by learning by fire, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take risks. So definitely don't listen to those people in your life, even if it's people who claim to love you. Don't listen to that voice in the back of the head that says you can't do it because of whatever reasons. Even if you have a family, you can still do something. I know people who travel the world with their family. I know women who are single, like me, like you, that do it without a family. I know men who do it for whatever reason. You can totally.
Look, I completely agree with you. And just dipping into the psychology of it quickly, there's no doubt that those people that sort of tell you those things do love you. The problem is that often it is that they wanted to do it at some point in time, or they are afraid for you. So they're either afraid for you because they love you so much they don't want something to happen, or they're acting out of, I wanted to do this. My family kept me back. Therefore, you can't do this. I'm going to keep you back. And they don't do it consciously or to hurt you. It's just human psychological phenomenon that often we say, well, if I can't do it, you can't do it. And so, yes, this rhetoric is out there with women. You need to get married and you need to have babies and you need to be smart and cautious. And hell no, that's what I love about this younger generation, is they just don't care about that anymore. It's like, no, I have one life and this is how I choose to live it.
Definitely. And one thing I love about travel is that I've gotten to meet so many different people from different backgrounds. So I definitely can say I have a friend who chose to get married before she was 21. She's got 3 kids, all under the age of 6, and she's a stay-at-home mom, and that's the life she chose. And I've got a friend that I met who travels the world, and she's in her early 40s and doesn't want kids, and she's single and she's loving it. And I've got a family member who fell in love with a family member. She's family by law, and she and my family member still travel to they still travel, but they've got a family now. And I've also got another family member who is deathly afraid to even leave to be in her own house by herself. If her husband leaves to go to work, and she just recently retired, if he's not there while she's at home and can't handle it, she's perfectly content to be in her house, in her hometown, for the rest of her life. And that's family members, and I've also met friends who have all these different life experiences, and that's one of the reasons why I feel I'm glad that I have this desire, is because I've met people in my life just growing up who are family, and then I've met people growing up who are friends who have very different life experiences, and I get to learn from them. And then doing this, by traveling outside of the world, in very limited amount of time that I have done so, I've learned about other people and the way they live. And I think that's whatever makes you happy is fine. And if you are the type of person who wants to live in their hometown for the rest of your life, even if it's in some rural area or a very urban area, that's fine. If you want to be a housewife or a house husband, that's fine. If you never want to have kids, that's fine. Or if you want to travel the world by yourself, or travel the world with your spouse, or just you and your kids, it's totally fine. I think one of the reasons why everybody should want to do some kind of traveling and living in other places in their life is not just for job opportunities and not just for the opportunity to learn multiple languages, but also to experience different people, different life situations, and grow from it. I've definitely grown as a person just from having my friend who's a housewife, got married when she was 20, has 3 kids under the age of 6, and doesn't really want to do or who wants to be a housewife for the rest of her life. I've learned and become a better person just from her life situation, much less my friend who got a job in her 20s as a travel photographer assistant. And she's in her 40s now, no kids, doesn't want kids, doesn't want to control the world. Obviously not during COVID, but before COVID, she's traveling the world. She never wants kids. She made sure that she never could have kids, never wants to get married. Different situations in life.
I agree. You said it perfectly. I agree. Like what you want to do, just go for it. It might fail. And I don't believe that something is failure. I just mean that it's a redirection in life, whether you believe in God or the universe or divine intervention, whatever it is. If it doesn't work for you, it's not for you right then in that moment, but try. Because the one thing that you do not want is a lifetime of regrets. And I want to thank you, my friend, so much for coming on and talking to me. I've loved it. And it's been far too long since we chatted like this, and we are not going to wait as long to do it again. And I just want to say to everybody out there, thank you so much for listening. So I'll be back next week with another guest. If you want to go to my YouTube channel, International Immigrant, please do. And you can follow me on Instagram, international__immigrant. Again, I would like to offer, if you have any questions that you would like me to answer in future episodes, please feel free to ask in the comment section on YouTube or Instagram. And from my international immigrant journey to yours, see you next time.